I went to a bar one night and I could see this woman looking at me. And because I lived in an area where I have dealt with this my whole life, I already knew why she was staring at me in that type of way. She starts to make her way closer to me. And finally, she's like, I just want to let you know the father of my child is Asian, which has nothing to do with me. But she was like, yeah, I will never forget the day I gave birth to him because when they put him in my arms, I looked down and I was like, wow, look at his fat Asian face. He looks like Buddha. And so we've made his nickname Buddha ever since then. So we still call him that to this day. So when we talk about compassion and education, how do you approach compassion in educating someone who has an Asian son, who had an intimate relationship with an Asian man, and that's how she approaches a random stranger.
As a second generation Vietnamese Cambodian American and a child of war survivors, there are gaps in my knowledge and understanding of my ancestral roots. Somehow, much of the art, the culture, the history never reached me. So, this is my way of learning, growing, and healing through community. All right, everyone. Today I have here with me Ashley Triệu. Do you go by full name? Full name Ashley Triệu?
Yep. And then
Yes.
tên Việt của mình là An, so An hay là Ashley is fine for me.
Beautiful. Yes. She is an artist. She is a creative. She is a fashion designer. She is a singer. I don't know what else she doesn't do, but I am super excited to have her on the call with me. I have witnessed her from afar. We have not met in real life yet. But I just
Yeah, almost.
yet. And I just admire you from afar because of just how consistent you are showing up, your creative abilities, your creative talent. I'm just excited for us to dive in because I know we have a lot to talk about. And so I'm just going to pause here and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Ashley or An. For the past 12 years now, it's insane. I've been a fashion designer with my own brand Iconoclasts, where I design, cut, and sew everything from scratch. And all of my creations are made with the intention of enhancing the star quality in my customers. Um, my specialty there is gowns, and they're used mostly for special occasion applications. So people are getting married in them. I've had people win Grammys in them, go to their Sundance screening in them. So I feel really fortunate to have such an amazing, inspirational customer base, and that I get to kind of make their uniform for them to go out and do the cool things that they do. And so that's that. And then you mentioned that I'm a singer, and I songwrite as well, but right now I'm primarily focusing on my YouTube channel, Laserdisc Diva, where I sing covers. And since I was little, one of my biggest inspirations is music media, whether that's Vietnamese music media like Paris by Night, Asia, or American like VH1, MTV. So I kind of combine all of that together on my channel and then just bring back, like, you know how big karaoke is in the Vietnamese community. That's something I grew up doing with my family and the community. So it's a way for me to kind of like do that on YouTube with a bigger audience and bring that cultural element back in that way. And with my fashion business, I had kind of walked away from singing for many years. And so it's my return to that as well. So that's been really amazing for me. And then I'm Trutopia on Instagram, which has like taken shape, I feel like, in the past few months. And that's really just a place where I can be me and you can kind of see all the elements of everything that I do. I share a lot of my inspirations on there. I share a lot of my experience on there. And so it's basically art, culture, and personal experience through a Southeast Asian diasporic lens because that's the lens that I see things through. So that's
Mm,
kind of in a nutshell
mm, mm, mm,
everything.
mm, mm. I love that. I love watching your videos, and I love how when you play these throwbacks or when you are in your artist, your singer mode, it feels like you're transporting me back into time.
That makes me really happy to hear because I feel like I'm such an oldies head and I'm like, I don't, it's so different than the music of today, but I truly feel like there's some substance there, there's some magic there that's kind of missing in the things that we have today. Not that like the entertainment that we have today is terrible, but there's something different about it that I want to kind of bring back and I want people to remember and hopefully infuse that back into people's inspiration today. So it
Yeah.
makes me happy that that's the takeaway there.
Yes. So for today, I'd love to hear about the topic that's on your heart, and we'll dive into that and then highlight the project that you're working on. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about the documentary and get your feedback as a Vietnamese artist. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
Beautiful. So tell me, what is on your heart today?
Okay, so I think we both represent for the Southeast Asian community, and I'm curious if you have any hurdles that you kind of run into with how to show up and how to take up space. Because I feel like when I was younger, the experiences that I had made me almost confrontational and aggressive in my style. Having processed a lot of those experiences, I want to come from a place now where I don't necessarily off-put people. If the message isn't for them, that's fine. I want people to really see us and to hear our stories. And I think with our placement, because I feel like first we were yellow peril and there was a lot of negative stereotypes there. And then it flipped to model minority, and all of a sudden we're these, model citizens or whatever that don't really have issues. We're high achieving and all of that. I think that combination has created a dynamic that sometimes it makes it challenging because
Mhm.
what I find is a lot of people tend to have cognitive dissonance when we are not the stereotype. But I want to bring awareness to stories that maybe are not as commonly told, kind of open the door to a more diverse understanding of our experience in the diaspora. And so I don't know if like you run into issues like that too, or I just overthink all this stuff, which is
I
possible.
I would love to hear if you can give examples of what of the experiences that you're thinking about. And also, by the way, that's the first that I'm hearing yellow peril.
You've never heard that before?
No. What
So,
is yellow peril? I've heard of minority
oh my gosh, I'll have to send you some stuff like some images and some propaganda from that time and some information about it. But it was basically saying it was more focused on Chinese immigration. But as you know, we kind of get lumped all together. So it affects Asian Americans as a whole. But basically, it was that we were going to bring crime into
mm,
the country, that we were dangerous, that we would bring disease, and we would bring immorality and things like that. And then it's like the model minority came, I feel like, when we actually started having more solidarity and more activism within the community with other minority groups. Oh, so I have a psychology background as well and a sociology background. So a lot of my college years I spent looking into stuff like this. In the academic world, like the Asian academics talk about the model minority being a myth that was created basically to sever us from other communities of color and to use us to create more of like a hierarchy. So we end up fighting amongst each other. So in that, a lot of our struggles get minimized. And so when you're talking about like some of the specifics of the issues that I run into, one of it is how do we talk about some of the struggles in our experience without discounting our resilience, without presenting it in a way that makes us feel victimized. But at the same time, we need to shed light to some of these issues because when we spoke the first time, some of the stats on our youth and the suicide and the amount of like PTSD and certain
please share.
issues, mental health. I mean, one study found that 70% of Southeast Asians that actually went in for mental health care had PTSD. And that sounds extreme. And I feel like some people could be like, that statistic has to be off. But for me, when I just look to the community that I know, I see these issues. And so it's like, how do we talk about that in a way that is empowering and not in a way that's so sad? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
I don't
let's
want
talk
to
about it. 70% of Asians or Southeast Asians?
Southeast Asian specifically, and I think that a lot of us come from a background of surviving war, surviving genocide. Even if our generation didn't, I don't think that a lot of our families have been able to process that and had the privilege of processing. That's a lot. We then deal with that, through epigenetics and just the nature and nurture, all of it. So it makes sense to me that that's the case. I don't have to look far to see issues like suicidal ideation, self-harm, domestic violence, addiction,
Mm,
like all of that is like, close by.
yeah.
But based on the stereotypes that were created, it kind of makes people less likely to believe or empathize.
Yeah, I when I hear that, I'm like, I'm definitely part of the 70%. I'm part of the 70%. If I look around, I couldn't tell you who else in my circle that are Southeast Asian that also are feeling the feelings that I'm feeling unless they are vulnerable enough or open enough
Yeah.
to even talk about it, right? Like, I think getting even past that, I feel majority of people that I know or friends that I'm thinking about, we don't really talk about that. That's something that
Mhm.
I know happens in my world and in my family, but it's not something that is discussed. If anything, maybe the symptoms of it would be addiction to drinking or drugs, right? But I don't know of many people who would admit out loud that, hey, I have had suicidal thoughts. If anything, I'm the one in the friend group that's like, that's me. Yeah.
that's open about it. Again, that's like a great point
Yeah.
because I don't want people to feel like I'm putting us on blast. I don't want it to seem like it's just putting it out there without being solutions based.
Yeah.
You know
I
what
think
I
I
mean?
I think the first, I mean, for me, I think just even being able to talk about it is a step forward because but if we don't talk about it and if we don't acknowledge it, then there is no problem when there is. I'm curious for you, what's important about this for you? Like what would you want to do? Because I feel when I hear you share that, I don't feel like we'll be able to really appease these communities, right? The ones that are, oh, the ones who don't look like us or resonate with us, they're going to have a certain perspective and view, and that will be that. And then the
Mhm.
community, the population within the community that does not want to address it or talk about it or to acknowledge it, that's also another community. Then there's
Right.
people like me who would love to hear, hey, who else is actually experiencing these things? Because fuck, I feel alone, right? Like when it gets dark, it gets dark. And when you're in it, there is no light on the other side. And
Mhm.
even when I'm in it, and I'm talking about specifically like having these, spiraling into the suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
which doesn't happen often, but I can tell you when it happened for the first time in my life, and that was when I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
Why is a 5th grade having, a 5th grader having those kinds of thoughts, right? So I think for me, what comes up when you ask, it's more of um not appeasing, being okay to not appease these other communities that do not align, but really showing up and speaking about it for those who do resonate and actually want to hear about this from others who are like us, who look like us, who sound like us, so that we feel less alone and feel like, okay, I'm
Right.
not crazy. This is a part of our human experience, and this is what happens when you do have historical generational trauma that's been passed down.
That's a great point. So it's more about shifting the focus to the people who are going to feel seen by it and the people that it's going to be healing for and that are ready to hear that and it resonates with them. But I think why I focus on the other communities is I think a lot of progress would be made if we could get them to also see and understand and be on board. So I guess that's like a
Mm,
separate subject, but I think a lot of the progress would be from opening up people who have opposing ideas. Because if they don't understand or if they don't resonate or they're not comfortable with it, that means there's something to work through because these are real experiences and it's affecting our community every day. And so when people check out or don't care, it's almost like they don't see us as human enough to have that empathy, or within the
mm.
community, they're not ready to go there because it's so personal.
What does that look like in real life? Have you personally experienced that where you've tried to have a conversation and you experience the other party having cognitive dissonance?
The state that I'm in is 3.8% Asian, and then Southeast Asian is smaller than that. It's really low. Like California is like 17%, like a third of the whole Asian population lives in California. So it's a different vantage point here. But even outside of that, I see things like, I don't know if you saw on TikTok, but there was a viral video of a pregnant Asian woman at the mall, and people were recording her and saying, I've never seen a pregnant Asian woman before. This is wild. And that's the kind of things that I dealt with all the time. Like
Yeah.
just recently, I gave my credit card to a cashier and she was in shock. And she's like, your name is Ashley. That's not Oriental. There's a time when I was at lunch and a woman just stopped in her tracks and was staring at me. And I was like, can I help you? And she was like, I'm just shocked. I didn't know that you people eat that kind of food. Like, I thought you eat exotic food. So just me eating a pizza created cognitive dissonance for people in my own hometown.
Wait. Okay, this is this is disturbing. This is so disturbing. This is disturbing because we have had different experiences because I've lived in, well, aside from school, like I went to school in Kentucky, but having lived in
Mhm.
Boston, I mean, I've lived in a lot of diverse cities. The only place that was not as diverse was Kentucky, but even then, I have not experienced a lot of what you just mentioned. That would make me so mad.
That's why I had a lot of anger. Like I said, I'm at a phase where I'm trying to figure out how to show up and communicate because I realized my communication style was very based around being angry and blunt and in people's face. And I didn't
Yeah.
care back then if I made you uncomfortable, if you received it, because you had made me uncomfortable. I had been uncomfortable my whole life in these
Oof.
situations. If you have to be uncomfortable with my truth for a second, I don't care. But now I'm at a place where I've
Mm,
processed a lot of that. And I'm like, no, I want to help people see that we are human and the issues that we have so that they can be more sensitive going forward so they don't treat another little girl in elementary school the way that I was treated. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to create that change. And so
yeah.
that's why I think focus on those communities that are closed off. How do we break through to them? It's
Mm,
not just about breaking through to the people who already experience this and know that that's the truth.
okay.
That's part of it, helping them to feel seen. But I really want to force, like, I guess force isn't the right word. And one like solution I came to, and I don't know what you think about this, is that telling these stories through art might be better received than me just saying it. What I'm saying, that's a misunderstanding, that's a
Mm,
stereotype. No, it's not actually like that. What if I tell it through a poem? What if I make a film
mm,
that you see it
mm,
happening? What
mm,
if I write a song about it? What if I just show up as myself and I'm not the things that you think that I am? Is that powerful enough in itself? So instead of having to force and tell it in this more direct way, maybe I create artwork that gets people to see it.
mm. I love that, and it comes back to the question of, well, what do you do when you are in those moments? Again, like how do you show up in those moments where there is clear ignorance?
Mhm.
And I appreciate you sharing how you have approached it a certain way where you have been direct and you have felt the anger and just blunt and come from a place like I don't care. This is your
Yeah.
natural, Okay, the two words that come up is compassion and education. How
Mhm.
do those two words resonate with you when you think about those specific moments that you're encountering cognitive dissonance?
I think that's exactly the two things I need to keep in mind. And like I said, I don't think that I was wrong for the way that I handled it before. There's
Yeah,
nothing wrong
yeah.
with that. I like that version of me. But now, yeah, I do want to approach it from an education standpoint and a compassion standpoint because that's what's going to spark the change that I want to see. Where before it was almost like I'm annoyed to have to deal with this, so I'm going to almost hurt you the way that I have
Mm,
felt hurt, understood, to almost even the score. So I was actually putting out more of what I was getting in a sense. It was more
mm,
justified where it came from, but it was just creating more of what I didn't want to see because those people probably just shut down. They didn't learn anything from that. They might have learned like, okay, I can't stereotype everyone, that this is someone I can pick on, but it didn't really go further than that. And I really want
yeah,
people to understand us as a people. So it's like I want to for people just to see the humanity in us. And
yeah,
that comes from sharing a lot of our stories. Some of them are difficult to share or whatever, but I really think those are going to be the ones that break through.
yeah.
But yeah, compassionate education, I have to bring it back there. So I feel like if I get confronted with that now, I'm going to hear your voice being like, compassion education. I'll be like, yes, that's focus.
Yeah, because if you, whilst also what comes up too is, okay, so on the flip side of being angry and annoyed, I feel like on the flip side of that, it's almost like, wow, you've never met someone like me before. Well, let me share my light with you. And this is, we are kind human beings just like you, and you just happen to be that one Asian person that they're encountering because they have not been exposed to that.
And that's such a challenge because I almost don't even want to show that I'm kind. I think that's why I was angry because that was already the stereotype. That's why sometimes people
Oh,
dared to say things because it was
uh,
like an expectation. I'm just going to be submissive and like
oh,
just let
oh, okay.
myself.
Yeah. Submissive and kind. Yes. I get it. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to include this part, but just to put in perspective with you, like, I went to a bar one night and I could see this woman looking at me. And because I lived in an area where I have dealt with this my whole life, I already knew why she was staring at me in that type of way. She starts to make her way closer to me. And finally, she's like, I just want to let you know the father of my child is Asian, which has nothing to do with me. But she was like, yeah, I will never forget the day I gave birth to him because when they put him in my arms, I looked down and I was like, wow, look at his fat Asian face. He looks like Buddha. And so we've made his nickname Buddha ever since then. So we still call him that to this day. So when we talk about compassion in education, how do you approach compassion in educating someone who has an Asian son, who had an intimate relationship with an Asian man, and that's how she approaches a random stranger in public?
That's
That's the
testy.
challenge,
That's testy.
right?
That is testy.
So I think it's easy to say that when you haven't like dealt with that consistently.
Mm.
And I don't know if that should be what it is, but with some people, I don't know if the compassion and the education is really going to get through. And so maybe it's also a matter of we're not going to get through to everyone, and that's fine.
And back to point one, it's I think like just accepting people for where they are. As much as we want to change people and as much as we want people to see us, I think spending our time and our energy for the people who will receive us, I think that's where I would approach that. That's hard. I would move out. Oh my gosh, you've been dealing with all kinds of experiences. Woo. Mm-mm.
Well, and that's what I want to share these because even within the
Yeah.
Asian community, sometimes people are like, what are you talking about? Like, really?
And I feel that there is power in you sharing your story as it is because I did not know that these things happen. And so to hear you directly sh like to hear you share your story and directly how you have experienced what it looks like specifically, my mind is blown like what? I can't even
I
believe
have
it. So,
so many stories, and a lot of my childhood like memories, the vivid ones, were anger
yeah.
because like, my mom's family in Vietnam, they were pretty like well-to-do materially, and they
Hmm.
lost all of that when they came here, but they still wanted me to be exposed, you know what I mean, to different environments and to be comfortable. So they would take us to like high-end department stores, even though we couldn't really buy anything. And they would just profile us the whole time, even to the point where when I was 5, they're like, we don't have any of your shoe size, just because they didn't want us to be able to buy it. And then my mom fought that, and finally another attendant went and got the shoes, and then they acted like they couldn't get the shoe on me. Like they were like, you have oddly shaped feet and you have arched feet. Like none of these shoes are gonna fit you. My mom vividly remembers that. She was gonna splurge for my first violin concert to get me like a pair of shoes from like a nice store. So these were like consistent things. And for a while, I was upset about it and wish we lived in a different area. But I actually think that that has a purpose. And I feel really grateful for these experiences because it gave me a vantage point. I could see it happening to other groups of people too outside of myself. And because I had been there, it gave me empathy and understanding. And I didn't turn the other way to it because I had been in that position, even though the variables might be slightly different. So I
Mm,
feel like that's part of what I'm supposed to do. I still haven't figured out exactly the mode of how to do it,
yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
really thankful for it.
Wow, you do have a vantage point. Yes. And again, I just can't help but feel like you are just blessing people out here to show you are in fact like you by you showing up as you, you literally are offering people the opportunity to show up a certain way with humanity,
Mhm.
for humanity with compassion. And you can see and experience that when these people do not. So, and kudos to you. Just I commend you on still living in the area that you do, having thick skin, still showing up and not and I would love to hear, is there a connection to your life experience and your art? You mentioned, using art as a way to communicate and to demonstrate. Is there a connection now?
Yeah, through my writing and through Utopia, a lot of these themes come out and come
Mm.
through. And that's why I'm so big on even showing Vietnamese artists that break the mold. People like Tuấn Anh that people wouldn't like think of. Even showing some of our people and just letting people see us in a different light is important to me. So that definitely comes through with why I do this. And that comes in a way that maybe it doesn't seem as overt. Like I'm just showing you an artist, but me seeing that artist as a child broke through stereotypes for me because I was in an area where there weren't a lot of us. And so I'm passionate about showing people the people who made me realize I could be myself because I saw a part of my authentic expression in them. And then when it comes to iconoclast, I feel like a lot of my clothes are like glamorous. They show off your figure and like it's for people that want to stand out. That also has to do with that because I was made to feel like I had to like be in a certain role. I had to be in the background. I had to be subdued. And I'm not, that's not my personality. I'm meant to be center stage and I'm meant to like shine a certain way. And so I think that comes out in my designs as well, because it's for people that when you walk in a room, it draws attention in a certain way, but that is a part of it's not just about getting attention, but that's about expressing a part of yourself when you are a more bold personality, and for women to take up space, even when it comes to just something as simple as that.
Mhm.
And so I do see these themes, and it's like it's taken me to look more deeply into it because I was just doing this stuff. I was just drawn to this stuff. But when
Mhm.
you ask that question, I realized a lot of it does have to do with breaking through some of the limitations and the glass ceilings that I have seen.
Yeah. Will you share what's one of the projects that you're working on now that you want to highlight for the community to be excited about, to be aware of that you're currently working on?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't really have an answer for that right now. Because
Anyone that you're excited about?
I'm excited about stuff, but it's so interesting because as an artist, as much as I'm telling you these different changes that I would like to make, or that it's about visibility, it's about all these different things that have to do with outward impact. When I create, I'm actually not thinking about any of that. I'm not
Mm,
creating, I'm just, it's like I get into a flow and I just do it. And then after the fact, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, this is going to do this. This is how I want to present it, and
mm,
then those factors come into play. But when I'm
mm,
picking a song to sing and I'm like thinking of a video that I'm going to make for Laserdisc Diva, or I'm thinking of a new design that I'm going to make, none of that is a factor.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
create for myself, but then I hope that the impact goes to the community. You know what I'm
No, it
saying?
makes sense. And I understand because when you say you're not thinking about it, what you're saying is you are in flow. You are literally just being in the moment, present in the process of creating and not in your head, but you're in your body.
That's exactly what it is. And I'm getting back to that because from, creating for so long and making it my business and making it my source of income, I started to lose that, where I started to design from what's going to be popular, what is going to be wearable to a lot of people, like what is going to like I shifted the focus and I lost something in that. And so now I'm coming back to that after doing a lot of processing, stepping out and looking at it from a different vantage point. So now I'm back to just making things that bring me joy and hoping that when I put it out there, that it's going to resonate with someone who authentically sees themselves in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to spark them to then do them more loudly.
Yeah. I love to hear because when I see your work, I see someone who is again consistent, creative. Out of the 12 years you have been a full-time artist, literally creating your own work and making a living from it. What is one lesson that you have learned?
The biggest lesson that I've learned is to take care of yourself. We're both Capricorns. I'm a Capricorn stellium. I worked nonstop. I thought that just being productive all the time and doing something was going to move me forward. And actually, a lot of times you can get stuck in doing that, and you're in autopilot and you're not critically thinking about stuff. Like, I feel like you get blind spots to some mindset issues that you might have. So that's one thing for me, is like an artist, rest is actually productive. And that's been a big thing for me in the past 5 years, is going against the idea that we have to be productive and doing all the time. And the rest has, I think, brought better ideas and more clarity to make bigger leaps and bigger jumps in my business and in my artistry than just constantly doing. And
Mhm.
the constantly doing was good because in the first few years, I'm learning. I'm learning the skills of everything. I'm learning how to get a handle on things. But it escalated where that became the norm and that became my schedule. And I depleted myself in doing that. So yeah, like I think that rest is really productive, and it's hard to see it that way sometimes, but
Yeah. I'm a
yeah.
Capricorn stellium too, so and yes.
Aliens too,
Yes.
holy sh.
Last
Let's
question
talk
for
about the
yes.
oh, go ahead.
No, I got two questions. So yes, let's talk about the documentary. So the documentary project is where I'm going to go to Vietnam and Cambodia to go learn and explore the ancient sounds of both motherland countries. And then at the end of the trip, create a new conscious music album that infuses the traditional sounds. And so I would love to hear from you, what is your perspective? And as an artist, a Vietnamese-American artist, what would you like to see? What would you like to see in the documentary?
I want to see what you want us to see, because you are the one who has this calling to make this. This is a part of your purpose that you're following. You're going to be there amongst these communities of people that have retained these amazing ancient healing modalities and wisdom from being away, you know what I mean? And being kind of isolated. Who am I to tell you like what I want out of it? I think that when you're experiencing that, your takeaway and what you feel is important from getting to do that and getting to be around that and getting to learn that firsthand is really what I want to hear from you. And I really feel like it's a part of your calling. And so I want you to share with us your takeaway and what's most important to you in that whole experience.
Mm, thank you. Thank you. What do you
I don't know if that
envision?
doesn't help take direction, but that's truly like how I feel about it.
I'll take it. I'll take it. And what do you feel the impact would be as a result of this documentary? What do you envision the impact could be?
I think that this documentary isn't just about the sound healing itself, but about you going back to your roots and connecting with that. And so I hope that the impact is that a lot of people will explore that as well. And I think in the diaspora, that's super important because I think a lot of people don't feel connected enough, but always have that longing. It's almost like a void that they can't 100% grasp. So I hope that it will encourage other people to do the same. Like one of the things I was thinking about that's challenging, that I don't know if you feel the same way, but a lot of times I feel like when these sorts of practices get more mainstream attention,
Mm,
sometimes there's a negative aspect of the impact too. And like, do you ever think about that? Like, I think about how ayahuasca healing and yoga has become more mainstream and how that has negatively impacted those practices in some ways. And some of the people that are truly, like have the wisdom and have the knowledge to do that. Do you ever think about that? Like, how do I do this in a way that's ethical and gives these communities credit and exposure, but in a way that still protects them?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I feel I've thought about the intention behind it, the intention. And as long as the intention is pure and it comes from a place, the intention is to promote healing through sound and also the
Mhm,
culture that again, like you referenced the diaspora, people having felt, feeling disconnected, but always having that longing to be
mhm,
connected, focused on that and really the inspiration and this opportunity to bridge the gap regardless of like where you are, regardless of the generation you're in, when you hear, when you watch, there's something that will spark as a result of that connection. Yeah, I understand when ayahuasca and yoga, yes, but that's also like the Western, Where can people find you, your work? Yeah, you offer a lot of different you have your music, you have your clothing. Where can people find you?
I think Trutopia is the place, that's my Instagram, Trutopia. And that's the place where I think you can kind of see all of it and follow all of it. And all the links to all the different things that I do is there. And all the links to the separate accounts are there as well. So that's kind of a good central spot to stay connected with everything that I'm working on.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll tag you, we'll include it. I appreciate you so much for your time and for bringing awareness to stories that, like you mentioned, these are untold stories. These are stories that not a lot of people are aware of. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you sharing your feedback on the documentary, also bringing awareness to something I'm not considering and something to be mindful of as we think about, okay, how do we do this ethically and also to preserve, but to get the message across. So I appreciate you. Yeah.
Of course. I love connecting with you, and it's an honor to be able to connect with you again. So,
Yay. Thank you.
Hi, friend, it's Alcina. I wanted to come in here and say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my journey. If you enjoyed this video, and maybe you have been following me throughout the whole entire Healing Through Community series, and you are behind the mission of generational healing, please consider contributing, donating to the Sound of Healing documentary project, where we go to Vietnam and Cambodia to go learn what the ancient sounds are, to then incorporate that into new conscious healing music. If you haven't heard my music yet, this is the time to do so. I'll include the link down below for you to check it out. It's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, so that you can better understand what is conscious music, what is healing music, It's music that it's intentional to make you feel good, uplift you, motivate you. This is your opportunity to be a part of a project that will impact generations and promote healing beyond time and space and beyond the physical realm. This is a project that is near and dear to my heart, and it is also a divinely guided project. Next year will be the 50th anniversary since the end of the Vietnam War and the 50th anniversary since the start of the Cambodian genocide. 2025 is a big year, and that is our deadline to finish this project. But we can't do this project without your support. So please do what you can, spread the word, and if you can contribute, please do. And let me know if you have any questions, feedback, thoughts. Thank you for your consideration, and let's continue to heal and grow together. Bye for now.